So somebody's asking how to find this design done in embroidery, and so I just wanted to shoot a quick video to show how simple it is to create something like this and some of the tricks that I would utilize to make it even a little bit easier. So the first thing you do is you bring it up on your screen, and this is supposed to be 2¼ inches by 2¼ inches. So the very first thing you always want to do whenever you're digitizing, you want to get your artwork set to the proper size. So I'm going to come in here and change this to inches, my ruler, so that when I'm working over here, it just makes it a little easier. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that the image is selected by selecting this backdrop tool icon, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to define the horizon, because I can tell that it's not straight across. So what I'm going to do is, I know that it should be straight across from here over to here, so I'm just going to click and drag from here to here and make sure it's pretty centered there. And that's going to rotate the image. It's going to look off there, but right here you should see it be pretty straight. So from there to there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to resize it. So I'm going to make sure that it is 2¼ inches. So I'm going to right click and define the scale. And from here I'm going to go to the edge of this one and drag it over to this side, about midway into that line there. And here I'm just going to type in 2.25 and hit OK. And now I have the artwork resized and it's ready to digitize. So what I'm going to do is I'm really going to focus on just one piece at a time. So if I take this back, you can see that this is identical design. You have this piece and then you have the center piece, and it just kind of does the same thing. So really, if I'm going to digitize this, I'm going to focus on this piece right here and this one right here, and then I'm just going to copy, paste, and rotate it around. So I only really have to create a couple pieces here, and then I can just copy and paste from there. So the other thing, first thing you always do is you think dimensionally with a design. So this piece right here appears to be on top of this piece. This section right here seems to look like it's going to be behind this section. So I will always digitize that first. And in knowing that I'm going to replicate it multiple times, I'll start up here, I'll do this piece last, and then, but at the same time I want to make sure that when I copy and paste it, I can start and end close to where the other one left off. So knowing that the other one's going to start right here, I'll probably try to end this one right here, so that when I duplicate it and I can kind of get one started, I can do a run stitch over. You'll see how that goes. But that's the thought process on it. So now that I have it at size, first thing you always want to do is you want to measure it. So this is in inches. Let me go back to metric here. I always measure in metric. So it's about 4 millimeters wide. So that's easy to do a satin stitch. Same with this piece right here. These are all the right size to be able to do satin stitches. As you can see, as I click and drag, it says tip use a satin, tip use a satin. So as I click on the ruler down below, it is telling me what type of stitch to use. So let's go ahead and get it started. So this piece right here looks like it's behind these two, so this would be the starting point. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my classic satin tool, and I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to create this piece. I'm going to hold down Control to do a curve to it. And when I'm doing something like this, I'll probably come down to like here to make sure that there's no real separation between objects. So once I create that, now I'm going to go right into these pieces. So I want to do this side first because I got to come over to here. So I can come in here and I'm going to try to curve this around. So I'm going to start inside over here. I'm going to come in, and now I'll hold down Control, and I'm going to go from one edge to the other, and I am going into the other piece to allow for to make sure that I don't get any gapping in this area. And let's go ahead and do the other side. And I'm not changing my start and end points yet. I will do that here in a second, just to kind of show you Go right to the edge here. Just coming in here, making sure I'm giving myself enough room so that I don't get any of the gapping. So I've got these 3 pieces. They're just satin stitches. I'll just show you really quick. This one is going to start up here, and I'm probably going to change that. So I'm going to have it end about right here so that the other one can start about right there, and I'm going to start it down here. And I'll right click, and on this one I'm going to start it right here where the other one left off, and I'm going to end it about right here so that when I start this one I can start it where the other one left off, and I can end this one about, let's say, right there. And the reason that I'm doing that is just to make sure that I don't have any trims or jumps. It's just going to go from one object to another. The other thing I'm going to do, because I can set this up kind of as I go, sometimes I'll do it all at once, or I'll do it as I go, creating all these lock stitches and stuff. I need to tie this one in, but I don't need to tie it off because the other one's going to start where it ends. So on this one I don't need a tie in or a tie off because it's going to start where the previous one ended, and it's going to end close to where the next one's going to start. But on this one, same thing, I don't need to lock it at all because where it ends right here, I'm going to start my next stitch. So that's just a little trick that you can utilize. So in doing this, because I'm in the software, all I have to do is really digitize this piece right here, and then I can change the start and end points. So let me come in here, and I'm going to go right here, and I'm just going to start doing the point counterpoint. I'll hold down Control now on my keyboard so I can start going around into a curve. And all I'm going to do is finish off this piece here, and I'll show you where we go to next. So now that I have this piece, I'm going to select it, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to make sure it starts where the other one was ending, and then I'm going to make sure it ends about right here so I can start my next piece. So let me go ahead and right click it, and so this whole area is pretty much done. The only thing I haven't done at this point is I haven't change the settings like the density or any push and pull compensation that I want to add to the design. All of that I need to add as well, and I'm going to go ahead and do that right now because I don't want to have to go back and change all of them after I copy and paste it. I want to get this all set up the way I want it before I go to that next step. So let me go ahead and hit 3D view off, and I'm going to zoom into this area just so we can make sure that we're focused in it. So when I come over here, these are pretty small pieces over here. I don't want them to be too dense. Okay, you don't ever want it to be too dense. So I'm going to select these, and I'm going to make sure it's a 0.5 density. I like that. In here, I'm going to do a contour stitch. I'm not really. I'll have parallel on as well, and I don't need to have too much, but I need to have some underlay there. And let me go over to pull and push compensation. I know that it's going to pull in about 0.2 to 0.3 millimeters, so I'm going to add 0.3. I want to make sure that there's enough there. And I typically nowadays just work on push compensation by line, and I do it 1 and hit apply, and it just backs it up 1 stitch to allow for the push that will take place. And that should be pretty good if I put this onto 3D view. The other thing I want to make sure of is I want to make sure that I have enough overlapping between these stitches. So if I come in here and go from here to here, I have 1 millimeter. I need at least 1 millimeter to make sure that there's no gapping that takes place. So it looks like I'm pretty good when it comes to overlapping. I shouldn't get any gapping in this area. And let me go ahead and look at it from right here. I want to make sure that I have at least 1 millimeter in here, and this will change a little bit because I haven't added compensation here yet. So this little first area is done and ready to go. Let me go to this piece. This one's a little bit larger. I'm going to move this one down to a 0.4 density, and just to give it a little bit more fill. And a 0.4 is not too dense. It should give you full coverage. I will do a contour and a parallel for the underlay. And then the push and pull, same thing, absolute. I will add 0.3 to each side, and I will back this off one line because it's a satin. And basically, you'll see what happens here. When you add pull compensation, it'll widen these stitches, and at the ends here, it'll back it up for the push that takes place. If you want to learn more about that, I definitely recommend you look at like the Digitizing Masterclass or something like that, where you can learn all about push and pull, because it's very important to learn and to understand about the digitizing process. So I have this all set up now. So when I'm going to select this and move it over, the last thing that I really need to do is, because I'm starting right up here, I want to create this run stitch that comes down and ends right where that other one's going to kind of start, right? So that would be the last piece. I'm going to grab this run stitch tool. We ended right here, so I'm going to create this run stitch, and you'll see how this works here in a second. I'm going to run it all the way up to right here, because that's where the other one is starting when I get done here. So I have this all in one color. I want to make sure that this does not have a tie-in or a tie-off, because I'm going to go from one object to the next. So now that I have all this, let me go ahead and select this backdrop here. I'm going to lighten it up a little bit so you can see the stitches a little bit better. Just a little trick to make it a little easier to see everything. So you can see, I'm going to do a slow redraw here. So you can see that it's doing these pieces here. And it's going to go ahead and stitch this, and then you'll see that it'll do this run over to here. Okay, so there we go. Now what we need to do is we need to copy it and paste it and rotate it. So I'm going to select everything here. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to try to get it right into place over here. I'm going to group it together too, so that it's easier to select. Wow, I actually did a pretty good job of rotating it. It's not perfect yet, but it's pretty good. So let me get this into place here, and you can see that it's not looking perfect right now, meaning that the artwork isn't lining up as much as you would like, right? So one of the things that I'm going to look at with it is I'm going to kind of zoom into this area right here, and I'm going to look at right here from one side to the other. You can see that it's pretty straight here across this bottom to that. So it still is pretty good, even though I'm not showing it as lining up as perfectly right here. Just means the artwork's not perfect, but you can see that it's looking pretty good on the screen here. And so I'm going to keep working with it, and we'll go from here. So now really that piece is now done. Now I can go to the other one. So I can just paste another one and rotate it, or I can just select all of this again right here. I don't need this last piece. Well, yeah, I do. So I'm going to select it all. I'm going to copy it and paste it. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two things. I'm going to flip it horizontally, vertically I mean, and then horizontally. So you can see what happened there is if I go back a couple spaces, it's going to take this and mirror it down by flipping it vertical. But you'll see that this section right here now has two of the same item in it, but once I flip it horizontally, this piece will flip over to here, and it's going to end up over there and not overlap it here in this area. So hope that makes sense. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on positioning this. So let me go ahead and group that, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And I'm going to turn off the artwork for a second, and I'm going to just really focus on trying to make sure that this is lined up pretty good, where there's some overlapping in every area. And it's looking pretty good here. I'm trying to see if I get this straight across, and you can see that it's not yet, that these pieces aren't. So let's see what happens if I move this over. And you can see that it's not really wanting to line up as well there, but I do need to go up a little bit too. So everything is starting to kind of come together. And this is just something that you do and you play with and try to get it as good as you possibly can. And all I'm doing is trying to minimize the amount of work and not digitizing every piece if I don't have to. And in this case, you can see that I don't have to do it all individually. Now you will notice that there's a couple things that happened, like there's this little extra run stitch down here. That's because it was a part of the original that I can delete because that won't be necessary. The other thing that you're going to know is that the order of this is not going to be exact anymore. So if I did a slow redraw, you'll see this. So it's going to come in, it's going to do these pieces here, and it's going to run over, it's going to start this piece. The next area will be off a little bit. So let's see right there, that run, it actually, did pretty good. It still got it into the right spots, so it's actually not bad. I just need to make a couple little changes there. So let's take it off 3D view. First thing I need to do is I need to grab this run right here, and I need to edit it because it's not really falling inside of the lines like it should. So let me just bring it into the middle here. And not only that, but it's ending in a different location here. So let's go right there. And now it's going to start and end where it needs to. And let's just make sure that on this one right here, if I come in here, that's going to be about right. And so now we're basically done with this design. We've done it. Everything should work pretty good here. The last thing that I need to make sure that I do is take this last path right here and make sure that it does tie off. So you can see that for some reason I do have a tie-in and a tie-off on this one, but I really should only have a tie-in. So that means that this one right here probably has the same thing. Yep. So I'm going to change that to none and none. I only need a tie-in on the very first object and the very last object. So these I don't need because it's a continuous design. Make sure these run stitches, yep, they're good. Last thing I'll do here is I'll select it and just change the color really quick. I want to show it in like kind of a, what I think it would be is like a goldish color. If I can find a good gold color here. Like an old gold. And that's kind of bright. I don't like the way that it kind of looks, but you can see here that what this design would look like, and we'll do a little slow redraw again just to make sure everything looks like it's going correct. Should run down to that, come back up, run over. Yep, everything looks like it's going in the right kind of motion there. So that's how you would digitize a design like that. And again, this one is set at a 2.25 inch. And so that's how you would digitize this design. Pretty simple. but it just takes some practice.